you know there's wildlife in Singapore. And when you see this video title, your mind probably jumps straight to otters splashing in the river or hornbills perched on a tree outside your HDB window. But it's not just that. In fact, I'm willing to bet that many of you have never even seen some of the animals on this list, despite the fact that they are surprisingly common here in Singapore. You see, while Singapore is small and hyper-urbanized, we punch way above our weight when it comes to biodiversity. We share a lot of species with our Southeast Asian neighbors, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, but as someone who spent years photographing wildlife around the region, I've realized something kind of fascinating. There are certain species that are actually easier to see here in Singapore than anywhere else. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not like you can just walk out of your home and see these animals chilling at the bus stop. You'll still need a bit of luck, good timing, and maybe some jungle-dwelling patience. But here are my top 5 picks for animals that are more common in Singapore than in many other countries. Before we begin, for those new to my channel, my name is Terrence and I've been a wildlife photographer and videographer for the past 10 years. I am currently a Nikon ambassador and I've also worked with multiple brands and organizations over the years to create content around wildlife and wildlife photography. Number 5 on this list, the smooth-coated otters. Okay, yes, I just had to include them, but not just because they are charismatic and internet famous. The smooth-coated otter has practically become a Singaporean icon. They star in news reports, they trend on TikTok, Instagram, and they have their own fan clubs. But here's what's wild. This species is threatened in many parts of its range, and yet in Singapore, their numbers are growing. Why? Because our waterways are cleaner, our green spaces are connected, and somehow they've adapted to urban life better than most of us during the work-from-home era. You'll see them in Marina Bay, Bishan Park, Pasir Ris, and even people's private haunts where they are often not welcome. And if you're lucky, you'll catch an entire romp with pups play fighting or catching fish. They're not just surviving here, they're thriving. And for a threatened species, that's kind of a big deal. So, for how difficult it is to find them, I'd put it at a 4 out of 10. Number 4 on this list is the lesser mouse deer. Now, I know this one is probably going to surprise a lot of people. The lesser mouse deer is about the size of a chunky guinea pig with spindly legs and big eyes that look like they belong in some kind of anime. They are super shy and crepuscular, which means they come out at dawn and at dusk and move like ghost shadows across the forest floor. But if you go to places like Bukit Timah, Central Catchment Nature Reserve, Lower Pierce, and take a quiet walk, you might catch one strolling through the underbrush, kind of like a forest Pokemon. And the crazy thing is, these are really difficult to see in other countries. You know, in Malaysia or Indonesia, they're often overhunted and just far more elusive. But in Singapore, they're protected and sightings, while still not say super common, are actually much more reliable. We also do have another type of mouse deer, the greater mouse deer, but on mainland Singapore that's extremely difficult to find. But you can still find them on offshore islands like Pulau Ubin. It's not as easy as the lesser mouse deer for sure, so for the lesser mouse deer difficulty, I'll give it a 4 out of 10 and greater mouse deer 5 out of 10. Number 3 on this list is the Sunda Kugo. This is hands down one of my favorite animals to photograph. So, meet the Sunda Kugo, or as everyone else likes to call it, a flying lemur. At first glance, it looks like some weird mashup of a squirrel, a bat, and a plush toy. But kulugos are actually in their own unique order of mammals. They're not squirrels, and definitely not bats, and they're the best gliders in the mammal world. We're talking 100 meters of aerial finesse, just sailing from tree to tree like an umbrella caught in a breeze. You'll often find them clinging completely flat against tree trunks, camouflaged like bark, especially in places like Bukit Batok, Bukit Timah, or MacRitchie areas. In other countries, good luck finding them, even in places where they exist. Here, I've seen them up close so many times, multiple times, even with babies clinging to them like koala bears. So, the difficulty level to find them, I'd put it at a 3 out of 10. Number 2 on this list is the Wagler Pit Viper. Now, let's talk about danger noodles, specifically the Wagler Pit Viper. beautiful, bright green, calm, but definitely not something to boop on the nose. These snakes are ambush predators. They just chill on a branch, barely moving, waiting for a rat or a frog to wander too close. And while they are native to places like Peninsular Malaysia, your odds of actually seeing one in the wild are pretty low. But in Singapore, if you go to Bukit Timah, Dairy Farm, or any area within the Central Catchment Nature Reserve, boom, you might just see one drift across a low branch, perfectly still, perfectly photogenic. They're not aggressive, but do not get too close. Respect the distance, take your photo, and admire from afar. So, I'd put them at 6 out of 10 in terms of how difficult it is to look for one. Before I reveal number 1 on my list, here are 2 honorable mentions that I just had to include. Raffles banded langanger. This is one of Singapore's rarest primates, and it's critically endangered. In Malaysia, they're practically gone, and in Singapore, there are fewer than 100 of them left. But the good news is, conservation efforts here have been strong, and you can sometimes spot them in places like the Central Catchment Nature Reserve. They are jet black with white banding and super graceful in the trees. If you see one, count yourself super lucky. Difficulty level 8 out of 10. Red jungle fowl. You might think that's just a chicken, but not really. These are the wild ancestors of domestic chickens, and they are absolutely stunning. Glossy black tail feathers, bright red combs, and the proudest strut that you've probably ever seen. In many parts of Southeast Asia, they've interbred with domestic chickens and lost their wild traits. But here in Singapore, pretty much everywhere, you'll find some surprisingly pure jungle fowl. So yes, even our chickens are cooler than average. Difficulty level 0 out of 10. Way too easy. And finally, number 1, the Strawheaded bulbul. One of the most critically endangered songbirds in the world. Why? Because in other countries, they've been poached to near extinction for the songbird trade. But here in Singapore, they're safe and thriving in protected parks and nature reserves. Not only are they beautiful, with streaky golden heads and bold markings, but they also sing. And they sing very, very well. Their calls are rich, melodic, and loud enough to make you stop in your tracks. It's mind-blowing to think that Singapore might be the last stronghold of these species in the wild, a small island nation doing more for its songbird survival than many other countries. And its difficulty level 6 out of 10. So, how many of these animals have you seen personally in Singapore? Let me know down in the comment section below, and if you haven't seen them yet, maybe this video gives you a reason to get out into nature and explore a little bit more. Because yes, Singapore may be small, but our wildlife, it's wild in all the best ways. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more content around wildlife and wildlife photography. You can also help by supporting this channel by buying me a cup of coffee, link in the description down below.